here in San Diego to talk to Alex Waters about what they do here and learn from some of the thinking that comes out of the startup world.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming in. So, tell you a little bit about Connect All with the Jacob Center. Connect All with the Jacob Center is a City of San Diego funded program which basically focuses on low to moderate income and diverse entrepreneurs. And so the big piece of it is being able to help individuals as they're moving forward to build their business with the hope of scaling them large enough to create jobs for other residents of the City of San Diego. We have everything from tech, brick and mortar, people who are doing e-commerce, to accessibility. So there's a large range of businesses that are actually occurring and working in the space we have here.
So they come into the space here and start on their business plans and to begin to grow their company here, and you help them with mentorship and other tools to do that.
Yeah, so everyone who is in the program, so they have to apply, there's an application process, and they get 6 months of training. So we do weekly workshops with them from subject matter experts that come in. We just had a recent one on pricing strategy. Like, how do you think through the process of creating your price, right? And that's something that a lot of times people, they just kind of pick it out of thin air, but obviously there's a very large methodology behind how that actually works, right? Yep. So they do that once a week. They also have obviously access to the space, and then we also pair them with mentors to be able to really take what they're doing and sort of amplify it. So everyone who's here has something that they've already kind of created and started working on. Some are existing businesses that have been up and running for a little bit of time. Others, they're still at the earlier phases, but at least they have like a prototype or an MVP that's been developed sort of their business. A large part of what we do here as well is kind of focusing on that kind of customer discovery, really understanding the customer. Not just a customer is somebody who likes coffee, right? Like there's a whole profile that needs to be built out around who is the traditional coffee shop drinker, right? And there's different kind of variations. A lot of folks when they start, especially for small businesses, if they've been successful and been around for a period of time, they may not have had a systematic process to do that, but they figured out how to do it initially, and then they get away from it because it isn't the same person, it isn't the same thing. Customers are wanting different kinds of things, industries are changing, and so I think that part of constantly having a process to be able to go back to is really important, and a lot of the earlier phase businesses and startups now have to almost incorporate that from the beginning. Like you don't have the option to not really understand who your customer is because there's so many different choices out there and available to people. Yes. I mean, one Google search and you could find a company and a business that can do anything anywhere around the globe. So what used to be, and I think a lot of cases for small businesses, very local, now we live in a world that's global, basically. So we actually start the entire program with the customer because the framework of everything that builds on later on, it's going to come back to the customer.
How would you describe the customer experience?
Well, I mean, just in general?
What that is, yes.
Okay.
What's the definition for that?
Yeah, I mean, it is not only just the pattern of how people find, how people use, how people interact, how people think about whatever product or service it is that you're actually providing, right? And so there are just these kind of layers of what it actually looks like. Right? People will say, hey, I want to open a pizza shop. And it's like, it's not enough just to open your pizza shop.
Right.
Like you gotta be able to tell the person who's gonna be coming in, why should I pick your pizza shop out of all the rest of them?
Right.
And I think as customers are more discerning, they don't, like it's not okay just to do one thing. Okay. If you do one thing, you have to do one thing great. And people are way more, because there's just more options, right? And people are thinking, I want the perfect thing that's going to fit for me. I mean, I think the number one thing that every business has sort of been impacted by is the ability for customers to interact and engage with the businesses almost 24/7. And so most of the folks that I'm around or you meet that are especially small businesses, brick and mortar, the biggest thing is like marketing, getting people in, finding out stuff about it, right? Yeah. But marketing really goes back to sort of like the engagement and like what is the value that you're actually sort of providing for them and how connected do they feel to your particular brand and your business, right? And so from that standpoint, obviously anything with like social media, being able to engage with customers, setting yourself sort of aside that how are you different and differentiated to really drive home that like value. And then you mentioned sort of obviously with authenticity, when people are making choices, for a lot of the customers, there's so many choices. Like there are so many choices for almost everything that exists right now to buy. And so if I have so many choices, then what can be the distinguishing or differentiating factor as to why I'm willing to pay more money for this, or why I'm willing to drive across town and go here, right? I have a car and I give a car service at a spot, and we've been here for about 5 years in San Diego, and we found them and they're great, but I go back and I've actually made a car buying decision based on the mechanics that I know would be fixing up a used car. And like that is what people should be aiming to have, right? It's like if I buy a different car brand, I can't go to my same mechanic. And that actually factored in a lot, because that kind of thing there is what I think a lot of times people, they just miss, because they used to do it and then they stopped doing it. And then they don't think about, wow, would my customer buy another car based on them being able to come here to get their car serviced? And that is like, if you can get that kind of commitment and that kind of
loyalty,
that
customer loyalty,
yeah, 100%,
there,
yeah. But we really try to focus on how are you addressing the problem, because the solution is going to morph and shift and adjust, and that's okay. But like, how are you actually sort of figuring out what that problem is?
Even more mature small businesses they may not even have a vision or have forgotten their mission, or it may need to be revisited.
Yeah.
And in doing so, focusing on what's the problem they're trying to solve can get them back to some more creative ideas about how to solve that.
Yeah.
Instead of doing it in the same old ways they always have been.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times they kind of you can get away from it because you've had success in doing something, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost a curse of the success, right? So let's take a restaurant. If a restaurant was successful for 10 years and then things are waning a little bit, like going back to the thing that made them successful may not be the thing that is going to make them successful in the future.
Right.
The company that created a drive-through probably was like that. It's like, what are you doing? Like, people aren't going to like eat their food after you handing it to them in a bag in a car while they're driving. That's insane, right? But now it doesn't seem like a weird thing, right? Now we actually have even extended beyond that. Not only will I, order my food without seeing it and you put it in a bag, I'll let someone else pick up that bag and deliver that bag to my house, right? So you don't actually have to go anywhere doing it. But those kind of innovative things happen most of the time in startups and in sort of scrappy environments where people are doing new things.
What other things do they work into their business model? Is it that might be something that another small business, more mature, should consider?
Yeah, I mean, so we've had quite a few companies that have done things that focus on sort of social impact or social responsibility. And that's been the biggest of the individual sort of parts that we've had here for companies that are building businesses and building sustainable businesses, but building them with the idea that they are going to provide some kind of social good. And not every business that is here does that, but that has been one that's obviously increasing and upticking dramatically, where it's not enough for a company just to provide you with a product or service. It's also, what are the things that company does? Like, is that company a good, in a lot of cases people use sort of a corporate social responsibility. Is that company socially responsible for the things that it happens? It's not just about profit, right? So creating a business that's just a for-profit business that also does good or has good at the core of what it does, I think that that's an interesting thing that's sort of rising as you start to see more social impact companies, accelerators. There's a whole wave of people talking about millennials and sort of what their desires are with respect to businesses, and like it not being okay and just enough for you to provide this value. It's also what else are you doing in the world? What else are you doing to sort of help and create a better place?
So do you see the startups here incorporating technology into the model that they're building in some way?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, so a lot of them. So there's an interesting kind of line, right? So before it used to be tech companies and non-tech companies, and like no company exists right now that is going to scale and is going to do anything that is not tech enabled. Like everyone has to have some kind of tech because we live in a digital world, and so figuring out how to provide and how to find those best resources for efficiency and streamlining everything from HR to marketing to legal services in some cases. Like, how do you embed sort of the technology in those pieces that create operational efficiency?
Yeah.
And so every kind of company does that, right? And if they aren't doing that, then it's going to be very, very difficult for them to actually be able to scale for two reasons. One, because the customer experience, getting back to that, can be shifted and changed and adjusted. And then also the people who they hire are coming in and expecting to be able to have these kinds of things, right? They're expected to be able to communicate, whether it's through something like a Slack channel or something. Like, those are expectations that every generation, as it moves forward, people walk in. And I think about like email. Like, if somebody started a job in the 1970s, right? Or let's even say the early 90s, right? Started a job in the early 90s. If you had a company that was doing anything that had to deal with email, they were like super cutting edge. Like, that's just not how it happens now. If you don't have your own sort of email accounts and things like that for employees, it'd be like, well, this is kind of weird. Why doesn't that exist? Like,
So along with this technology being incorporated, then you get the back end of that, which is all the data collection.
100%.
So even the startups will have the ability to analyze their customers and their data,
Yeah.
and think about the future in a more strategic way.
Yeah.
So there's another benefit too that a more mature small business would be missing by not incorporating that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, collecting information and finding out information about people, like, we've never lived in a time where there's been more data and more opportunity to collect information about people, right? Their preferences, why they do things, when they're coming in, but when you actually have that kind of data, you can make great decisions based on it. Like, that is a differentiator. And a lot of times people are like, oh, but it takes me so long, or oh, but I got to set this up. But when you can literally point to something as like evidence, if you find out as a mechanic, hey, actually, you know what? All of my favorite customers are only coming into the shop one time every 8 months. How can I get them to come in more? But you won't know that because you'll just say, hey, I just saw, the Smith family, and they came in and they had the car all service, and I see them all the time. But is all the time really all the time? Are they coming in every couple of months? Or is all the time you see them once every 8 months and you enjoy that experience, so you make an assumption that they're coming in a lot more frequently than they actually are. And those are the kinds of things that, especially with data, if you can collect it, and it's so easy to do things, whether it's Google Forms or having a CRM system that people can install basically for free and track folks, right? Like, that's the kind of thing that a lot of small businesses haven't done as much, that they can do, that they don't do, I think sometimes because they think the investment is very difficult. It's like, oh, this is a new thing I have to learn. It's like very tough for me to do this. It's like, yeah, it's new. But what it offers and provides is so much insight, and kind of spinning it all the way back around to really understanding your customer. And the more you can get, the more you can do that.
Off the top of your head, of course, but you work with startups every day, all day. You understand the world that they're coming from, and I know you're familiar with the big corporations and the types of models and trends that they're following. So what would you suggest to a more mature small business, something that they might consider in order to evolve and keep up with the startups and the corporations and stay competitive?
But I think a lot of times in small businesses, especially when they've been successful for a period of time, they forgot how innovative they were at the beginning. They forgot how, oh, well, I'm different because I do this thing. Or I'm different because, I'm able to find an efficiency where somebody else couldn't. I'm the best kind of go back to the auto mechanic job. I'm the best person that does brakes around. And I do them amazingly well. And this is what it is. And that gets kind of lost sometimes with success. Same thing with large companies, right? They just kind of over time take it for granted that they have to constantly be winning back their customers. It doesn't take a lot. I think sometimes people kind of think about it from the standpoint of, okay, well, it's going to take me a month to plan and execute and deploy. An example from one of the companies that we had here, they had customers before, and they wanted to test out a new thing, and people would do some pre-sales or order. Well, I have to set up an email marketing campaign. So no, you don't. You have their emails. You can literally type up an email right now and send it to them and see if you want to set a referral program, or you want to see, hey, will this discount make individuals buy more products? Okay, you can literally put that in an email today and send it out.
Send it out, see what happens.
But I don't think sometimes people look at that as a test. They think about it as the same kind of way that larger corporations do with product market launches. And I think people think that a launch is the same thing as a test. And those are very, very different kinds of things, right?
Well, in the small business you don't have a research department or focus groups and people to test things on. You are at the front line saying, here's a test, and I think the fear is that it's going to impact their business instantly.
Yes.
If it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
So there's a resistance there to test.
Right, but the thing is the test is not the actual thing. And that's where people kind of get it a little bit kind of confused, right? Because running a test to see if someone is interested in buying something, or running a test to see if they're interested in, a particular, so let's say if you are making jackets and you want to see if people are interested in buying a specific color and you only make one color, you throw up a mocked up version on your website and see if people will click to buy it. I think what a lot of small businesses do is they think, oh, well, I have to have it before I do. So if I want to sell a green jacket, I need to buy all the green jackets before I sell. And it's that's not actually what a test is. And
so
that's
there's a technology coming in to actually help that now, and something that they might not be thinking about
100%.
Because they're not connected to new technology capabilities and understanding what that can do for them in terms of testing and other things.
And a lot of times, I think sometimes people, they get sort of focused on how things used to be and what things used to cost. Right now, especially with the way that sort of technology has helped with web design, and you can spend a weekend and put together an entire website, an entire company. You can get a logo done. You can in a weekend, you can literally spin up something where it's online, it lives there, it's live, and you can take $50-$60 and get some AdWords and do some Facebook marketing and targeting and test a completely different thing. You can name it with a totally different company name if you're worried about that, because that's what I get from a lot of folks. Well, I'm worried if I do something on my own site or on my own thing, that what are my existing customers going to think about it, or how is that going to but set something up that's totally different, new brand, new name, new whatever, and see, hey, wait a minute, I set this thing up, I gave a value proposition, and there were 25 people that have given me their phone number for a follow-up call. Wow, I only thought it was going to be 6. And 25 did it, and that's pretty cool. And now, what do I do from this point on? Right? And I think that sort of changed it a little bit. But those are some of the things that I think that folks can kind of do and to think about, especially from a testing perspective. It doesn't take as much time as people think. I do think, though, that people are just worried and a bit nervous about doing it wrong. And the key thing is it's all about learning. There isn't a wrong, right? I ran that test. Oh wow, that test was designed really poorly. Okay, well, I'll just run another one. That didn't work, right? And so I think that sometimes people are oh well, I only have one shot at doing this, and that's the absolute worst way to approach doing anything creative and innovative.
Thank you. Such a great talk today.
Yeah, no worries.
Such good advice.
Cool.
I love all the stuff that you're doing here. So I wish you the best of luck, and to all of the startups that will be emerging from this building and from your mentorship. We're excited to see them.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, bye. Bye.